This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. Happy to have you guys here. How we feeling today? I hope everyone's doing all right. Kind of a crazy week, one in a string of lots of crazy weeks we've been having. It's just a weird time. It's a weird time to be an American, weird time to be living in this country. All these mass shootings are on my mind, and the mentally deranged guy in the White House is not helping things any. It's just a strange time, but I'm really glad we're all here together celebrating the music that we love. And on that note, my guest on the show today is Dr. P, a legend of the dubstep world, coming from the UK, a different country, different perspective. And I didn't know what to expect going into this conversation. We had never met before, and I was really surprised and blown away at how much I enjoyed it. Such an interesting guy, so much cool stuff to talk about. We're going to get into that in just a second here. Before we do, I want to make sure that everyone is checking out the new Spotify playlist for this show, Back to Bangers. The link is in the description of this episode, and you can go there and hear all the music that we talk about each week on the show. So if we mention a song and it doesn't sound familiar to you, you don't know what that is, you can just go to the Spotify playlist, check it out. I'm going to throw all that music in there, music from myself, from the guest, just related things to what we're talking about each week. I really want to build this whole world that we can all kind of just run around in, and the playlist is a big part of that. So go check it out. I'm stoked on it. It's a really cool way to learn more about all the music you're about to hear about. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Don't forget to leave us a rating and a review. Takes 5 seconds, is a big help to us. And, I'll just be your best friend. How's that for a deal? And I want to hear from you guys, too. Let me know what you think of the new playlist. Let me know if you have any questions, any comments, any guests you'd like to see on the show, just anything that's going on in your life. It doesn't have to be related to music. We can just chat. Just go to willyjoy.com. That has all the links to all my social media, the contact information if you want to email me, all the music, everything else. It's all there for you at willyjoy.com. And if there is somebody that you'd like to see appear on this show, don't forget, you guys have the power. I love to see when listeners will start tweeting at their favorite artists that they should come on the show. That has actually worked in the past. A few of our previous guests did happen because they just kept seeing their name requested on Twitter. All of that. I love having you guys involved, just to have these conversations that we can all enjoy. And speaking of, this conversation with Dr. P today is one of my favorites in a while. He is just a legend in the dubstep world. One of the seminal dubstep artists that I think really broke the sound in America. Between him and Flux Pavilion forming Circus Records, one of the most influential dubstep labels in existence, his early songs like Sweet Shop, Big Boss, along with guys like Rusko, they're really who brought these sounds over. They started this phenomenon that is now so huge in the States and obviously worldwide. And so we talk about all of that. We talk about what Circus Records is up to in the modern era, all the new music that he's going to be putting out soon. And I just think he's one of the more interesting dudes in the game right now. I just really like the way that he's been able to take his legend status and kind of keep evolving and keep progressing from there. Every time he puts out something new, I know it's going to be interesting. I know it's going to be progressive. I'm always going to check it 100% of the time because the way this dude thinks and makes music, it's just unlike anyone else. And you can really tell that he's not chasing any trends. He's just doing what he wants to do, what he thinks is interesting. And we talk about that in the conversation as well. It's that independent spirit that I think has served him and served Circus so well over the years. Dr. P is basically on tour forever, all the time. This guy is just a road dog. I'm going to put links to all of his tour dates, all of his music in the description of this episode. You definitely definitely need to go check him out when he's in your town. So without further ado, I want to get into this right now. This is me and Dr. P back to back. Let's go. I listen to a lot of like comedy podcasts and podcasts from, actors or theater or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or even like rap podcasts where they'll talk to rappers, but it just seemed like no one was talking to us.
Yeah. I mean, we started a dubstep podcast in about 2009.
Did you really?
Yeah, but it was so much work.
It's a lot of work.
And we were just, because we all lived far apart from each other. It was like all of us on the label trying to do it together.
Yeah.
And we lived so far apart, it was kind of everybody had their little thing to do, and we never managed to put it together. We did one episode.
Right.
And we never even managed to upload it.
Was it like a conversational kind of thing with
it was
music
just like
mixed in?
talking about music, playing some music, interviewing some people, things like that.
Yeah.
But it was like weeks to put together one episode because we didn't know what we were doing.
Right. Are you on tour right now? Is this part of a bigger tour?
I've basically just been on tour forever.
That's what I feel like. I feel like I always see your name on kind of every flyer.
Yeah. I don't do like a 4-month tour and then go home for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
For me, it's like a weekend, then another weekend, then another weekend, and I'll do 2 shows in the States, then some shows in Europe, then have a couple of weeks off. Like at the moment, I don't think I've got anything booked for February, which is quite nice.
Yeah, that is really
nice. So hopefully I'll actually get to make some music, which I feel like I just somehow don't ever have the time for, which doesn't make any sense. But
do you not work on the road? Is that
I constantly try.
Yeah.
Like I've worked for a couple of hours on some tunes yesterday, but what I can accomplish in 10 minutes at home, I can accomplish in like 10 hours on the road. It's just slow for some reason. When I'm on a laptop.
Literally just yesterday, I was in the studio with a friend of mine, and he's building out kind of more of a pro-looking studio in his place right now. And I was helping him put up some insulation, all that kind of stuff. And he was saying it was great, and he was so happy it was coming together, but that the more comfortable it gets and the better it sounds in there, the harder time he has working anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I find it even at home, the nicer my studio it is, the harder I find it to work at home as well.
Really?
Yeah, I always get the best results, just pair of speakers, laptop, computer.
Very bare bones.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
And any other setup just hasn't worked for me.
That's interesting.
I've been in like top studios around the world and I rarely achieve anything.
I've had a similar experience. For me, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but when I've been in really nice studios, I almost feel a pressure that I put on myself. It's not anyone else,
It's just a psychological thing. Like, I'm here, I'm paying all this money, I better make some really good music.
Right, and then if I'm fucking around for an hour just making a stupid sound, I feel like, well, this is a waste of my time in such a beautiful place, For
me, like, all the best music gets made when I am completely relaxed where I am. Like, so being at home, that's why you end up making the best music, I think, because you're just completely relaxed there.
Yeah. No, you don't have to worry about being in somebody else's space.
Yeah, the clock's not ticking.
Yeah, you don't have to leave at a particular time.
Yeah, like my studio chair, because I've sat in it for so many hundreds of hours, I'm physically comfortable when I'm in my studio, which is so important.
To your butt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can sit there for the whole day and not be uncomfortable.
Where do you live now? Is it London?
I'm like 60 miles out of London.
Okay.
I never really moved out of my hometown.
What is your hometown?
I live near Northampton.
My impression, at least, it's kind of a smaller town, right?
Yeah, it's not huge.
Yeah.
Nothing really goes on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I live right out in the countryside. I actually just moved house onto a farm.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so now I'm like really in the countryside. There's like sheep right outside the front door and everything.
Is that the kind of life you aspire to?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Rural life? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Flux just, a few years ago now, moved to London, and I just did the exact opposite of that.
Okay, you were living in London for a while?
Well, I never lived in London, but we lived like in Birmingham, in the centre of the city and everything.
Right.
But yeah, we've slowly got more and more rural.
That's interesting.
He's ended up right in the centre of London. He always tries to persuade me to move to London, but I just don't want to live there at all.
Well, it's what we were just saying. I think I could completely see a rural setting being a great place for creativity.
Yeah,
great place to get stuff done.
My new house got like woods right next to it and just fields around it. And I definitely prefer living like that. Wake up in the morning, it's just silence.
Yeah, that's valuable, man.
Yeah.
You know, when I tour and I'll go through smaller cities, I always will like fall in love with them for the night, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll be in whatever, Omaha or something and just think like, oh, I should move here.
Yeah.
This is so nice.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the quieter.
Yeah. So you grew up in Northampton?
Nearby. We grew up in a small town.
Okay.
Yeah, me, Flux, and Trolley Snatcha as well. I don't know if you
All
you know
from the
his
same
stuff.
town?
We were all at school together and kind of knew each other, and
Really?
we kind of became friends because we were all into music, all into electronic music and things like that.
Well, how did you, musically as a kid, were your parents musical at all? How did music kind of come into your life?
Well, it came into my life in the exact opposite way. My house had no music growing up. Music just wasn't even really a thing in my childhood.
Right.
We didn't have the radio on or anything like that. We didn't even have a stereo for most of my childhood. I remember getting my first stereo when I was probably about 11 or 12, and that was the first time we'd ever been able to play music in the house.
Wow, that must have been revolutionary at that age.
And my neighbour was a teenager at the time, and he lent me some CDs, which was just like, it was all the rave tunes that were around in the 90s.
Okay.
You know? And that kind of opened my eyes to this whole new world of music that I never knew existed.
Before that, what was, if you had been asked, like, what kind of music do you like, what would you have said?
The only access I had was Top of the Pops. It was like a TV show. It was like maybe an hour every Friday night or something, where basically the top acts from like the top 10 would perform their music.
Right, and people would dance around.
Yeah, that was all I knew.
Okay. Were you passionate about any of it? Like, did any of it catch your ear?
No.
It wasn't until you heard those rave tunes?
Yeah, and my uncle as well. I was in the car with him and he played like a Ronnie Size album. And then he made me some tapes, like a Prodigy album, a Fatboy Slim album.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind, all of it.
All the classics.
I think I was about 10 or 11, 12, something like that. And yeah, that definitely opened my eyes to more music existing, electronic music existing. And then I got Napster.
Oh, man.
When I was about 12. And that...
Big moment.
I literally just typed in drum and bass after hearing Ronnie Size and downloaded every drum and bass tune I could find on there.
Wow.
And yeah, from there I was just into drum and bass non-stop.
And this is late 90s era,
right?
Or early 2000s?
It would have been probably around 99.
Okay.
98, 99, yeah.
So I'm just a little ignorant in terms of the timeline for the UK. Drum and bass music, was it pretty underground in that era?
It was coming up at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know when it peaked, but by the time I was properly into it and able to go to raves, at that point it was almost dipping off a bit.
Okay.
I mean, it's come back massively now.
Right.
But yeah, when I was about 18, the raves were getting smaller at that point. Yeah, I never really had the money to go out anyway. I only went to a few raves.
Really?
As a raver.
So that's really interesting because I think that's a sort of unique take on it, is that you didn't have a ton of exposure to it. You were no one was feeding it to you. You were finding it on your own.
Yeah.
And then even after the fact, you weren't able to go see it that much.
Yeah, by the time I got into my first rave, I'd already been making drum and bass for like 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I remember walking into the rave the first time I went. I think I was about 18, and just realizing this is why this music exists. I never even knew.
Right.
Never knew why it existed before. I just liked it.
That's so funny. And then you realize this is how a crowd would react to a song.
My music improved a lot once I started going out, I think. Because
I can imagine.
I kind of clicked.
Yeah.
That's why the build-ups work like this. That's why the drops work like this.
And you were saying you and Flux and Trolley Snatcha were all at school together.
Yeah.
Were you kind of the only three kids who were into that kind of music?
I'd say so. Yeah.
I had a similar experience.
Yeah. Flux and Trolley, they lived like 2 doors apart on the same street. And I was a couple of years ahead of them at school. Yeah, we were all just into guitars mainly at the time, playing guitar. That was the cool thing back then, playing the guitar.
Right, the bands.
Yeah, so we were all into that, and we'd kind of create random bands together in different configurations with some of our friends.
Right, of course.
But at the same time, we were all into drum and bass, all into Chemical Brothers and things like that. And so we were all sort of messing around with producing.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been an interesting time because, the late 90s there, the UK was really having such a strong effect on the US market, too, with acts like the Chemical Brothers and Prodigy and all of those guys kind of making waves. At least in my lifetime, that's the first time I could really remember, just as an American kid, thinking that I understood electronic music,
right, yeah.
And that it was this cool thing that I needed to pay attention to. It was on MTV here and all of that. I mean, those guys must have been rock stars in the UK.
They were still sort of underground. They were underground, but they were almost like self-releasing their music, just small independent labels, but they were topping the charts.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, and that must have been, even if you didn't realize it consciously, kind of inspiring to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely got me. When I was like 12 and I was seeing these people that made music literally in their bedrooms, topping the charts.
Yeah.
That made me realize that I could do it if I wanted to.
Were you thinking on those levels as a kid in terms of maybe I could do this professionally?
Definitely.
Really? Yeah. Even at, age 12, 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my goal.
Really?
As soon as I discovered that music, realized they were making it in their bedroom, I thought, well, I can do that. So that's what I want to do.
Wow. That's so cool, man, to start that young. What were you producing on in those early days?
I used to use this program called Anvil, I think it was. I don't
know
Anvil.
if I know that one.
Oh, no, it's not. It was like shareware.
Okay.
It was like, I had like a Windows 95 PC, and it was like this MIDI, it was like a MIDI sequencer.
Yeah.
And I would literally create MIDI parts, and then I would use Cool Edit to arrange them into tracks.
Yeah.
Which is now Adobe Audition.
Right.
But yeah, back then it was called Cool Edit.
I think a lot of people started, just messing with audio in Cool Edit.
It was all I had. I didn't have a keyboard or anything. All
Right.
I had was this MIDI sequencer and this, Cool Edit, and I would just create terrible, terrible music.
I love that because then you would have such a smaller frame of reference, coming from the background that you're describing. And to me, just extrapolating outwards, I mean, do you think some of that is responsible for kind of the unique sound that you've been able to maintain throughout your career?
I was talking about this last night, actually, about how nowadays, if you want to become a producer, you just type, how do I become a producer into Google,
Right.
And you get a comprehensive guide. Here's the samples, here's the sounds.
Yeah, you can take a 6-month course just by watching YouTube.
Yeah. But that means everybody is immediately on the same level.
Yeah.
And there's nothing pushing them past that level.
Right.
Whereas for me, I had no choice except to learn literally everything on my own.
Yeah.
So by the time I got there, I had all this knowledge. And then I kind of realized that I had knowledge other people didn't have because I'd forced myself to learn everything.
Sure. And I'm sure that, some of the tips and tricks that you had found along the way or methods that you used, probably no one else used. They were probably unique to your...
I mean, I went for a period probably between about 18 and 22, 23, where I was just, all I thought about was music production. I wanted to learn every secret, every tip. So I would read like magazine articles and there'd be one line in there where they'd mention one thing and I would spend hours researching that one thing.
Yeah.
And I was just completely obsessed with learning about production.
Yeah, that's part of it too. On this show, I talk a lot about when your fun turns into your job, that there's a disconnect there and there can be some cognitive dissonance, and it's just sad if something that you used to love becomes work. You know? And trying to avoid that, I like what you said, is that, you just really followed the part of it that you were passionate about.
Yeah.
And in following the part, that was really exciting to you, all the rest of it kind of follows along. You know?
I still try and follow that now, that philosophy of just, I do what I want to do. I don't, if dubstep died completely and went away, I wouldn't just stop making it. because it's what I want to make.
Yeah, you got to follow the fun, man. I think that's it. Did you ever, this is skipping around a little, but did you ever feel anywhere in your career a pressure to make a different kind of music?
Yeah.
Or that you should be making a different kind of
Constantly,
music?
constantly. I mean, especially like when the dubstep scene started to dip off, I guess it was about 2013 or something.
Sure.
Where it went from being absolutely enormous to kind of leveled out at this lower level. It seemed like everybody was moving away from it. I mean, I moved away from it a little bit, but not because I felt that I had to, just because I felt that I wanted to.
Yeah.
But then after a couple of years, we all just went back to dubstep again.
Right.
Especially everyone on the label. It seemed like everyone was making Moonbaton and House for like 2 years. Just because we were kind of tired of doing the same old thing.
Sure,
But then after a couple of years of doing different stuff, we all realized that we didn't actually want to do different stuff.
Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, trying something and then deciding it's not for you, or that,
Yeah.
Or sometimes things just run their course,
Yeah.
There's certainly been plenty of subgenres that popped up that I was very excited about at the start. And then after a while, it seemed like everyone just sort of collectively agreed that, okay, we're done.
Yeah,
here. There's
yeah.
not much more to do here.
It's strange when these things happen. Like everybody moved from 140 BPM to 150, like overnight.
Right, yeah.
Nobody announced this is what's happening now, but every producer did it simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah, it's that funny collective consciousness thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also everybody is so worried about what everyone else is doing in a way that if they see one person doing something, this new idea, and this could be a good or a bad thing, but they see one person, especially a bigger name, doing something new in one way or another.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, maybe this is the new thing. I got to keep up because we're all trying to stay current.
Yeah, trying to stay current is the worst thing you can ever do as a producer. It's just
100%.
It's a nightmare. If you tried to be cool all the time, you would just make the worst music.
No, that's absolutely right. And I mean, trying to be cool is the definition of not cool, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, all the biggest producers, you can tell that they just do their thing.
Yeah.
The reason their music is good is because it comes from a place of wanting to actually make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of that, you can see the people who really are concerned with being cool and being in the trend and in the moment. And some of those guys, do have some success, but then, in my opinion, those are the guys that tend to kind of, flame out a lot earlier.
Yeah, I feel like they're the ones that never get above, a certain level where they do shows and things, but they're always end up at the bottom of the lineups.
Right. No one can predict the trends,
You just stick to your guns and eventually it comes back.
Right. And some of the people who I think get credited for predicting the trends, in my opinion, those are just the really creative musicians, Those are just people who are really good at making music and really good at following their creativity.
Yeah, I mean, you look at someone like Diplo and you could say, well, he predicted the whole sort of reggae sound coming in. Or you could say he was, part of bringing it in.
Right.
Or maybe a bit of both, or maybe neither.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I've known him for a long time, and he's always loved reggae music.
Yeah, he was doing it just because that's what he wanted to do.
That's
right
exactly
from the start.
right. Yeah, and so, maybe he just has good taste. That I think that's maybe a more plausible explanation.
He's got great taste.
Yeah, he
Musical
really does.
taste is like impeccable.
Yeah, I think that's probably his strongest skill,
He's just got a great ear for it.
Yeah. He's. I think about him sort of in the same way I think about a guy like Kanye West, where multi-talented guys, but the real talent to me is their curation.
Yeah.
Kind of, they can bring these sounds together that no one else would think to put together. They can bring people together in a room that would never be in the same room.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thinking that I think is really exciting at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that is really the definition of being a good producer.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. If you want to look at the, the classic definition of a producer.
Even if you don't know how to press the buttons on the software.
Right.
If you know how to get the right sounds together, the other bits don't matter.
Absolutely. I mean, you even think about a guy like Rick Rubin or something who's not
totally like hands off,
yeah,
isn't he?
yeah, very hands off. And, half the time when he goes in to work on a record, at least as the stories go, I mean, he's really mostly taking stuff out.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just like, I don't like that sound or that sound. You don't need that. And then,
And then they're all number one hits.
Right. It's those kind of brains I'm so fascinated by.
But you can tell, like, people like Rick Rubin, he just loves doing it. He's not trying to be like a massively successful.
Definitely not.
Producer.
No, and I had Destructo on the show, and I was talking to him, and he used to work with Rick Rubin. He was more or less Rick Rubin's A&R for a couple years in the early 2000s, and they were trying to basically start an electronic music focused branch of I think it was American, whatever label they were at the time. And it didn't really work out, sort of flamed out after a couple of years. But then he told a story while we were talking of he recently reconnected with Rick Rubin. And they were, just sitting around talking, and, Rick kind of just looked at him and stroked his beard and was saying, he was like, we were about 15 years too early, but we knew. Even then, it's like the public wasn't ready for it, or maybe the business situation was wrong. But
that was a big part of our luck, I think. We were into the electronic stuff at the exact right moment. That was a big part of how we ended up where we are.
Yeah. So going back to those early days, you started, messing around on some freeware, some shareware, making music. Were Flux and Trolley Snatcha or anyone else in your friend circle kind of working on music at the same time?
Yeah, we were all messing around with stuff. Then we all managed to get pirate copies of Reason.
Yep.
And we were making like terrible drum and bass on Reason for a couple of years. And then I went to university to do music in the end. My mum said to me, if you want to do it, do it. Go to university, do it properly.
Right.
Get the proper education. But then as soon as I got to university, I realised I knew it all anyway.
I had a very similar experience, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty much a waste of time. I mean, it gave me 4 years to sit and work on music, which was good. I didn't have to get a job or anything,
Did you learn anything in school that helps you with what you do now?
I learned that I definitely don't want to work in a typical role in the music industry. I had to do an internship in a studio as part of my course.
Yeah.
And after a few months, I realised I definitely don't ever want to work in a studio.
Right.
And I don't want to... I didn't want to work anywhere, as a session musician or anything. It made me realise I definitely want to be out there on my own, doing my own thing.
Yeah, not beholden to anyone else, not trying to realise anyone else's vision.
Yeah. But, I mean, the course was annoying. One of the first things they told us was, you're never going to make it. You're never going to be a rock star.
Great.
So... that kind of made me stop listening straight away.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I guess they just got to say that so people keep going to their school. But that's pretty bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I did the whole music course, got a degree in music production. It hasn't helped me at all.
Right.
But I mean, I've got it.
Yeah, it looks good on the wall.
Yeah.
And were you releasing music at all at this point?
Yeah, by the time I finished university, I was putting tunes out quite regularly.
Drum and bass tunes?
Yeah, drum and bass on vinyl.
Yeah.
Under DJ Picto. Yeah, by the time I finished uni, I was signed to Maximum Boost.
Okay.
Which is, he's still my manager now. I'm business partner on Circus. It's Swanee's label. And, I was signed to them for a few years. And then he said, this dubstep thing's starting to get some traction. Maybe we should start our own dubstep label.
Were you aware of dubstep at that point? Like, how did that sound come into your life?
A little bit, yeah. Well, Flux was quite into dubstep. He'd been making it. I'd been dabbling, but not really. I didn't really understand it. And but we could see it was catching on. People
well, in the
were
UK
interested.
at that time, dubstep then didn't sound like dubstep now, obviously.
No. There was similarities.
Sure. I mean, obviously, the tempo more or less and the focus on the bass line and the core of it. But, so much of it, the really, really early dubstep, it came out of reggae, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hated the early stuff.
Did you?
Yeah, 2006, 2007, the East London stuff. I hated it so much. I thought it was the worst music ever. Because obviously coming from drum and bass and stuff, I was into metal and drum and bass. I wanted stuff to be like so hard, so high energy.
Right.
But then that early dubstep wasn't that at all.
Yeah, it was a vibe. It was way more chilled out.
Yeah. So it wasn't my style at all. I just really didn't like it. But then I think it was around 2008 sort of time. People like Rusko, Benga, Datzik started doing their thing. And that's when it caught my ear.
Kind of clicked for you.
Yeah, I realised you could actually make energetic dubstep because before I just thought you couldn't. And I heard them doing it, and so I started dabbling. And
was it pretty popular in the UK at that point, or was it still pretty underground?
It was very cool on the underground.
It was very trendy.
It was the thing.
Yeah.
Every student was listening to dubstep.
Sure, it was the kids' music at the time.
Every teenager in like 2008, 2009 was pretty much into dubstep.
That's interesting.
But it was not in the charts or at all.
Right.
Nothing was remotely touching the commercial stuff.
That's so, yeah. When you just said that, it made me think, I've never really thought about this before, but, in the States now, the same thing is happening, more or less, with the rap scene right now. Rap is the biggest music for kids, for teenagers, and most of the popular stuff is not charting,
Yeah, the chart's pretty much controlled by the radio, isn't it? And the radio is very much like, there are certain things they just don't play.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and I even understand it to a certain extent. I can't imagine the radio playing. I mean, some of it would have to be so censored that it would be almost silent.
Yeah.
And I never made that connection between dubstep. And I think it's kind of a similar sort of youthful, rebellious energy, too, that you're hearing with a lot of these, so-called SoundCloud rappers, although they're more or less turning into rock stars at this point.
Yeah.
The Lil Pumps and all that. It's the distorted sounds. And again, I was a metalhead as well growing up, and I think it's that same vibe for me in my generation. And I guess every generation needs to find that music that's not what's popular.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the whole point of music, really, isn't it?
I guess that's sort of an obvious thing to say, yeah.
Like every generation of teenagers has their music that they're like, this is ours.
Right.
But when I was a teenager, it was like rap metal, Korn and Limp Bizkit and things like that.
All that, yeah.
And System of a Down, I was like really into.
I was huge into them, yeah.
But then all that became top 10 music, and suddenly people didn't care anymore.
Right. Yeah, it becomes less of a community, right, and less of a scene, and it becomes more of a commodity almost.
Yeah, I mean, that happened massively with dubstep in like a really short time.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, you started releasing drum and bass records, and was it a solo thing? Were you in a group?
I had some solo releases. Me and Swanee would do some tracks together, and to start with, we were putting them out as Swanee and Picto.
Okay.
And then we started Slumdogs, which was me, Swanee, and Crafty. Three of us, would make stuff together. I also had Sounds Destructive, which was me and Trolley Snatcha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was, we had a couple of releases there. So it was a few different random projects.
Yeah, just working with your friends, right?
I got paid £75 once. So it wasn't really a money-making scheme.
Right. What were you doing for money at the time?
I was pretty much unemployed.
Yeah.
I had a couple of really, really rubbish jobs. I worked in Toys R Us for a while.
Nice.
I was an ice cream man for a while.
Yeah, nice.
It was just making ends meet and then putting out these vinyls just with our fingers crossed, just hoping something took off.
Well, because the vinyl industry, if something did take off, there was a lot of money in that, right? Back in the day? The potential for a lot of money?
Not when I started.
Okay. Maybe that's an earlier time.
Yeah, we had vinyl releases that were top 10s on the vinyl websites.
Yeah.
And we were making nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it is expensive to make vinyl.
Yeah, we were pretty much breaking even. By the time you paid all the costs for the distribution and everything, you pretty much broke even. But the idea was you would get a name for yourself. If you have some hit that all the DJs are playing, then you start getting the bookings.
Right.
But that never really happened. I did a handful of shows as Picto and Slumdogs.
And as Dr. P, did that come about when you started making dubstep?
Yeah. So me and Flux and Swanee had been talking about starting this dubstep label, and I hadn't really made any dubstep at that point. We pretty much just had like 2 of Flux's tunes to put out, and he had a couple of friends that were making stuff as well. And so we thought, let's just start this label. You know, we saw a few other dubstep labels that were starting up, and we thought, let's just start our own.
Sure.
You know, I really wanted to start a label at the time. It was something that I just always wanted to do.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because I think in the modern era, it would sort of be the flip of that. Like a young producer would just want to work with a big name label rather than, initially starting their own label.
Yeah, there kind of wasn't any big name labels back then. I mean, Dub Police was the dubstep label.
It's the one-stop shop, right?
But even we could see that it could be done so much bigger than that. And so we kind of had our sights set on being this big dubstep label.
Must have been an exciting time to, it's kind of Wild West days, right?
Oh, yeah.
There were no labels, nothing was established.
No, we were luckily, Swanee had been in the music industry for a long time. And the fourth partner on the label is Earl Falconer, who's in UB40.
Oh, wow.
So, like, he had, all this music industry experience.
That's an interesting connection, yeah.
Yeah. He was just really into electronic music, just
Sure.
kind of wanted to be involved in that stuff. So, we started this label. We didn't really have any music, so I thought, I'll make some tracks.
Right.
I made Sweet Shop and Gargoyle, which ended up, at the time, just going absolutely massive.
Yeah. I mean, Sweet Shop was, even here for me, I mean, that was one of my early intros to dubstep.
Yeah, I didn't mean for it to be like revolutionary, but now people are like, that is the revolutionary tune.
Right.
But I think it's because I've been making drum and bass for years. All I did was open up a drum and bass project, slow the tempo down and tweak some things, and it became this completely new sound, completely by accident.
Well, and like we've been talking about, it sounds like you were approaching it from a different perspective as a lot of people. I mean, obviously you had the metal background and you liked aggressive sounds, but then also kind of coming from I guess you would say maybe sheltered beginnings and having less context for what you were doing, maybe.
Really just making it up as I went along.
Did it seem like different to you when you made it at all, or was it just kind of another song that you made?
I felt like I'd made something good. I played it to people like, check out this tune I just made, which I don't always do.
Yeah.
Because I don't always like what I've made. So I felt like I'd made a good track. I literally uploaded it to MySpace, and within like a month, it had like hundreds of thousands of plays. People had ripped it off, uploaded it to YouTube, and it had millions of plays on YouTube. And I only uploaded a clip, like a 2-minute clip, and people had chopped it up, made a full track out of it.
Of course, man.
Put up the 320 that everyone could download. It was like...
Man, that's the early, now I think that's so commonplace. People protect their music so much because,
I didn't think anything about it,
Right, and in those days, why would you?
I didn't think people would even care. I had hardly any followers. I probably had like a couple of hundred followers on MySpace.
Yeah.
And it was like the second thing I'd ever uploaded. And then in no time, I had thousands of followers. I was getting messages asking to book me, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, so I mean, was it the case where that tune kind of really changed your life, that one song?
Yeah, it was overnight. Like we hadn't released it yet. It was just on MySpace.
Wow.
And I was already making money from bookings at that point. Like literally it had been up a couple of weeks, and I was planning trips around Europe and stuff because people were so hungry for the music.
Yeah.
And, people were sharing it with their friends, and it's like, oh, who's this guy?
How did those first gigs, as a headliner, as a kind of known artist go? Had you had much, not just DJing experience, but sort of performance experience?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, I just turned up with some CDs and made it up as I went along.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. But I think when you're a musician, you kind of imagine yourself there. So when you get there, it doesn't feel that weird.
Right.
Because you kind of always pictured yourself there up on stage and everything.
Yeah, it's what we're working towards, right?
So when you get there, it's like you already feel like you're in the right place.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're not confused or anything, you know.
Yeah, and it sounds like, your connection to the music, you sort of really understood what it was that you liked about it and the feeling that you wanted to convey.
So I just played the tunes I liked. I've been DJing in my bedroom for years anyway at that point. So all I did was just do what I did in my bedroom in front of like 100 people.
Right.
And I thought it was a massive show, amazing show. My first ever show was in Amsterdam.
Okay.
Well, near Amsterdam anyway. It was probably maybe 200 people.
Yeah.
But that to me was insane. They
Man.
send me plane tickets, book me a hotel.
Those are special moments, man.
Yeah.
Those first ones. You went by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went by myself probably for the first 2 years.
And what, like age 18, something?
Oh, no, I was
later?
about 23.
Okay, a little later. Yeah.
Dubstep, didn't really come about till I was about 22,
Yeah,
23.
I'm getting my timeline screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 31 now.
Right.
So, yeah, it hasn't been that long. I mean, it feels like forever, but it's like 8 years. It's
The
not that long.
music industry makes you feel old.
I mean, I aged about 10 years in like the first 6 months because
Yeah.
I'd never left my bedroom, I had a couple of part-time jobs.
Right.
And like within 6 months, I was doing 4 or 5 shows a week, every week. And it was just grueling. And I was getting like £100 per show,
Right, yeah. And just, doing it for the love of it, right?
Yeah,
And the
it was
excitement of it.
It was costing me all the money just to get there.
Yeah.
And, buy some music on Beatport and stuff like that.
How did you handle, having all of that success sort of front-loaded on the career, at a young age too, traveling, not having traveled a lot, playing all these shows, meeting these people. I'm sure, people at the crowds probably looked at you in a different light, people treating you differently.
I mean, it was horrible. It
Really?
was actually horrible. It was
Yeah.
the worst experience I've ever had in my life.
Was it isolating?
I mean, I've been with the same woman, for since I was at school. Well, we're married now. But so we were together the whole time, right from the start, from her seeing me making these crappy songs in my bedroom to me being a DJ. So it was never like I was out there on my own. So I always had someone to kind of do it all with.
Yeah, support system.
So it was never really lonely or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was such a ridiculous change in lifestyle that was overnight.
Yeah.
And there was no escape.
It's one of those funny things, especially when you're first coming up, right? That there's all these opportunities, and the idea of saying no to even one of them wouldn't even cross your mind.
And I was so paranoid about ruining my career.
Right.
We had offers for remixes and things, and I'd be like, no way, I'm not doing that remix. That'll ruin my career. But I realise now, you can't really ruin a career that easily. You say something racist or something, it's probably going to ruin your career.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're a terrible person, you'll probably ruin your career. But other than that,
I mean, as long as you make good music and just keep your mouth shut most of the time, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy, actually.
But I was so paranoid about ruining my career back then. I was like, had all these anxieties, about I've got to make every decision's got to be right. And that just made it horrible.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety, I'm sure.
It took me a few years to relax and realize that everything was fine.
Yeah, well, and it's hard to have perspective when you're on the ride, right?
Yeah.
And when everything's moving a mile a minute. And it's you can't really see how a decision is going to affect you months from now because you're just sort of, your head's in the game,
Yeah, and I was getting such little sleep at the time.
That'll do it too.
And my girlfriend got pregnant just before I went on my first American tour.
Oh, man.
So that was a roller coaster.
I can only imagine. I mean, how did you guys handle the change in lifestyle? Like you said, was it hard to find that sort of work-life balance at first?
Yeah, it took years to figure it out.
Yeah.
There was a lot of arguments to begin with because it was such a shake-up. To begin with, we were living together every day, and then suddenly I was
kind
away
of a quiet
for weeks
life.
at a time.
Yeah.
She'd just be sitting at home seeing pictures of me surrounded by fans and
Right.
yeah, so it kind of took some time to get used to it, but now we're totally settled.
It's always weird to find that balance, and I still feel like I'm still learning it. Every time I think I've got a handle on it, I guess it's just one of those very cliche relationship things they tell you is that you always have to be working on it.
Yeah, it's so true though.
Yeah.
I mean, when we got married, part of me thought, "Oh, this is it now. Everything's fine." And then I immediately
I don't have to worry
realised,
about that anymore.
no, you definitely have to work on the marriage. That's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you start coming to the States? You said your wife got pregnant right before that.
Yeah, it was 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd been trying to get a visa for a couple of years because you can't just come to America. It's not that easy.
And especially these days, man.
Yeah. So it took us, because to get an American work visa doing what we do, you have to prove that you're like famous. It's quite weird.
Right, yeah. You have to get letters from people.
Yeah, you have
support,
to have someone here who's kind of bringing you over.
vouchers for you, yeah.
So we had to get an agent over here, and then you have to have a certain amount of press. You have to have screenshots of you in the iTunes charts and things like that for you to be able to get the work visa to earn money here and then take it out of the country.
And did you start working with Circle for booking right away?
Straight away. They were so quick on us. Steve Gordon at Circle, he was messaging me from day one.
I bounced around a lot, but I've ended up at Circle in the last couple of years. They've been great.
Yeah, I don't ever want to change agencies. They've done so much for me over here.
Well, and it sounds like one of the running themes through this whole conversation is that, you know, the people in your life, professionally, personally, all of that are kind of your day ones.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we were so lucky. We met the right people.
Yeah.
You know, we made a handful of good decisions because we met some of the wrong people.
You always did. There's a lot of them out there, man.
But we recognized they were the wrong people, luckily. Yeah. And, you know, we made decisions to cut them out really early on. And
it's cool you were able to kind of, you know, come up with your friends, you know.
Yeah, we were really lucky.
Yeah, and just have people to bounce ideas off of, or, you know, to say, like, is this guy legit, or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. At a young age, that must be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know what we had.
Sure, of course.
It just felt like normal life, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh, how many plays did you get today on MySpace? Oh, don't talk to that guy. And, you know, we're just hanging out like...
Yeah, just having fun, being young. I think that's how all of the best culture gets made, you know?
But, like, in hindsight, it seems like there were these, like, amazing years that should be, like, written down in history books or something.
Right.
And, like, but it was just... It didn't seem like anything at the time.
Of course, man, and I think that's just part of the human experience. At a certain point, as I get older, I'm getting more and more at peace with kind of enjoying my nostalgia and not being like, oh, I wish it could be like it was in this era. Because I think any time that you're going to call the best years of your life or the most fun I ever had or anything like that, the reason it was that way is because you weren't thinking about it at the time. Yeah. You know?
The weird thing is I was massively thinking about it.
Were you really?
Well, when things started blowing up, I mean, I started thinking about, you know, is this year it? Is this my whole career?
Have I peaked?
Yeah, and then the next year comes and it was just as good, and I think, oh, maybe this is the end. And so I was like constantly thinking like that, really, when everything blew up.
Do you still think like that?
No, I forced myself to stop because it was killing me. Just
yeah, it sounds stressful.
Yeah, so now I just... You know, I'll just make music and put the music out.
Yeah,
whatever happens, happens.
Well, I mean, it seems like this point we were saying at the start of this, you know, you're just on tour forever. I mean, it seems like the machine is running, you know, it's strong at this point. Yeah. And you kind of know what you need to do to have it keep going, you know?
Yeah, sometimes doing it isn't as easy as knowing what to do, but
right, yeah.
Luckily, we've got such a good team behind us, you know, that we're able to just keep going and not worry too much.
Well, how did speaking of the team, you know, from you guys starting Circus Records, you know, as just a group of friends doing something because you wanted to do it, how did the label evolve? Because I'd imagine you saw those early successes with your music, and, you know, same goes with Flux and kind of everyone in that sphere. I'd imagine the label saw a lot of success early on.
Yeah. We had way more success than we ever dreamed straight away with the label. You know, we were topping Beatport charts. And
was it hard to handle from a business perspective?
Well, luckily, Swanee's so on that. He knows the industry. He has the connections. He understands how things work. He still now is the guy running everything in the background. So, I mean, I trust him totally to make the right decisions.
That's good. That's good to be able to just, you know, have your input, you know, put in what you want to put in and then not have to worry about someone else, you know, screwing it up.
Yeah, it took us a few years to kind of figure out our roles because it was a bit strange, you know.
Yeah.
We own the label, but we don't run the label hands-on every day.
Right.
And Swanee's got more experience, but he's not so focused on the music. So it took us a few years to kind of work through who was really supposed to be doing what.
Right.
Plus, he manages us as well. So sometimes we'd ring him with a question sort of like for your manager, and he would answer it as your business partner. It was a bit strange at first.
Yeah, that's got to be, it's a little incestuous, right? Because sometimes you want to talk to somebody in the sense of like they need to do something for you, and other times it's almost like you're on the same level. And then I'm sure other times if he's in the label role, he's kind of probably telling you guys what needs to happen.
Yeah, so it took a few years for us to kind of learn to trust each other, basically.
Yeah.
Learn to trust that we're not trying to screw each other over. We haven't got different goals, things like that, you know, because it was all so fast. It was...
Right.
We never had these conversations before we started the label. We just did it and then had all this success. And suddenly when all this money comes in and there's all these big decisions that need to be made, you've suddenly got to decide, do we do this, do we do that?
And each of those decisions could affect money in the future, and I'm sure all of you guys are taking this more seriously at this point.
Well, as soon as it becomes your job, it's not fun anymore in a lot of ways because it matters. And like, we've got a team now, you know, we've got an office full of people. A wrong decision could mean half of them lose their jobs in a couple of years, you know.
That's serious pressure too.
Yeah, so now it's like, do we release this dubstep track that we love that we're pretty sure isn't going to make a profit? Or do we release this other track that feels like more of a commercial release that probably will make money, but it's not something we love as much?
Yeah.
And it's a hard balance to...
How do you strike it? I mean, is it kind of just situational on a song-by-song or release-by-release basis?
Yeah, I mean, we really just try and release music we believe in.
Yeah.
If we don't believe in it, that's the cut-off point, you know. If we had a song that we felt was going to, like, top the charts, but it was, like, the cheesiest, most gimmicky song ever, we wouldn't want to put it out, even if it was going to make money.
Right, because then we get into talking about the branding of it, right, and the following that I'm sure it's amassed over the years. You don't want to kind of throw a weird curveball just to make some money. That's what we were talking about before, is just trying to...
I mean, we quite like throwing curveballs, but not in a commercial way, you know. It's almost like we really like this and we put it out.
Yeah.
Even if it's something completely unlike what we would normally release.
What catches your ear when you're thinking of people to sign?
I think it's just people who are doing something new, interesting, cool. You know, someone who's doing their own thing. That's really what it boils down to. If someone's doing their own thing and it fits within our world, then that's it.
Yeah, that's actually a really concise way of putting it. Is there anything that is kind of an instant turn off for you if somebody sends you a demo, even in the way they present it or the way they reach out, you know, anything like that?
It's just the music.
Yeah.
Just purely judged on the music for me. If I hear a song and I like it, that's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'll have like my Discover Weekly on Spotify and in the background. And you just know when you like a song, don't you?
Yeah.
It catches your ear, you're not really paying attention, and you turn around and say, what is this song?
Yeah.
That's really what it's like with demos for the label as well.
I mean, I think that's good. That's a very pure kind of way to do it. You know, it's just based on that. Because that moment of turning around and saying, oh, what is this? I mean, that's why I keep DJing. You know? I think that's at the end of the day what I'm really addicted to is hearing that new sound again and again and trying to chase that feeling, you know?
When you find that one new thing, especially when it's an artist, you know, a producer, and you listen through all their music and you realize that you like all of it.
Yeah.
And you see it hasn't got that many plays, you know, it's that moment of, wow, I think I may have actually discovered something pretty cool.
Yeah, that can be really exciting too. Do you spend time trying to find people, or at this point does it come to you?
I'll go through phases. I'll have a period of weeks where I get really into searching for new stuff, and I'll spend all day on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll find one person that I'm really into, and I'll send them a message and say, you know, keep sending me tunes if you want. But then, you know, at the moment, over Christmas and everything, I haven't done that for months now.
Right, of course.
But I'm desiring to do it again. I'm kind of hungry to find something again.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I think, you know, Circus has had such an interesting discography, especially in the last couple years. Really interesting signings, you know, probably, like you said, a lot of curveballs, things people weren't expecting. I really love that you guys signed Discord.
Yeah, I love their music so much.
Buddies of mine, and I couldn't be a bigger fan of what they do.
They're so good.
Yeah, they're so good.
Every
man.
time they send me a new track, it just really frustrates me because it always sounds just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really happy when we signed those guys because they used to send us demos and I really wanted to sign them, but I didn't think they'd sign to us. I didn't feel like they would want to be on Circus for some reason. I felt like they would want to be, I don't know, somewhere like Mad Decent or something.
Sure, yeah.
I felt like they might want to go there, but then they signed to us, so I was really happy about that.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to see what they do next. Every time I get something new from them, I know it's going to be kind of a game-changing release.
Yeah.
What else do you guys have on Circus coming up that you're excited for in the next year?
I've been talking to this producer Chime for a while.
I know that name.
Yeah, he does. It's very old school circus type stuff. I'm really into his stuff. There's a producer from, I think he's from Sydney, called Enshway.
Shout out to Enshway.
Yeah.
Dude, that's my dude. Yeah,
I love his stuff.
He's incredible.
It's so old school circus as well, just in the vibe.
Man, if you guys linked up, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I really want to put out some of his stuff. I really want to meet him. I was in Sydney texting him, and he was in Sydney as well. But we just didn't manage to link up. It was so stupid.
Typical DJs. Man. Yeah. No, I met him while I was in Sydney as well. And man, he's such a nice dude.
I really like his stuff.
He would be one of my picks for a guy who's going to have a big year.
Yeah, I'm really into Willy as well. You can hear in Willy's music that he just bangs them out, and they just sound great.
Yeah,
you can tell. It doesn't sound like he was trying. Maybe he was, but it doesn't sound like he was trying.
Right. There's a certain effortlessness and like not self-consciousness.
Yeah, there's almost like a naturalness to the way he makes his sounds.
Well, and that's, maybe a good way to tie back into how your career sort of evolved over the years. Is I was trying to think on the drive over here, like a good way to describe your sound or just even the way you approach, your sound. To me, it sounds very not self-conscious, and it sounds like, I think a lot of times I've been in sessions with people where, someone will say, oh, like that's a crazy idea. That's kind of cool. Let's see if we can, sort of like tame it and fit it into what we're doing. And to me, what you do is almost the opposite of that, where it's like, this is a crazy idea. How could we make it 10 times crazier?
Yeah. I'll take away everything that isn't part of that crazy idea. So all that's left is the crazy idea.
Oh, that's a cool,
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it.
I normally the way I start is I normally like a track, Discord or something will send me a track.
Yeah.
And I just try and make that. I just try and completely rip it off.
Right.
And then I chip away at the bits that are ripping it off until all that's left is something that's actually new.
That's a great way to make some cool music, is just find something you're excited about. And
it's just it being inspired, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a fine line between being inspired and copying something.
Right.
So I start on the copying side and move my way over to the inspired side.
I think that's honestly the way that's definitely the way I do it. And I know a lot of people do, man. And I think if your vision is strong enough and you know what you like and are confident in what you like, eventually the other parts of what you're copying are going to get stripped away or warped through your particular lens anyway, to make it to a finished product. For you, there are consistent parts of your sound, I think, throughout the year. There's kind of the maybe like 8-bit style.
Yeah, that's gone away a little bit.
Yeah, maybe more recently.
I feel like that got played out a little bit too much, and I kind of stopped doing it so much. I'm bringing it back weirdly.
Yeah,
in my latest couple of things I've been working.
There was that one song, Every Single Night.
Right,
that one I felt like kind of had that 8-bit sort of.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, with the like, what I don't even know what to call the lead, but it was like sort of that really fast arpeggio kind of lead.
Yeah.
For you, when you sit down and approach something, do you usually have an idea in mind? Like you were saying, sometimes you'll start with something else.
Yeah. Normally I'll have an idea of like, what if someone made a track that had this in it? That's really where it comes from.
Yeah.
Even if that thing doesn't end up being in the track in the end, there's normally something like that. Like that song, at the time, it seemed like all the music was getting really serious. And I just wanted to make a song that had nothing serious in it.
Right.
Just wanted to do a release that was just pointless.
Right.
It was just a bit of fun.
Yeah, and I think throughout your career, especially you and Flux both, I mean, there's a sense of fun in everything that you guys
Yeah,
have done.
I felt like that had gone away a little bit, and so I just wanted to put that track out that was just a bit of fun and just you didn't have to think about anything.
Right.
The track wasn't trying to make you feel. It didn't have any important lyrics in it or anything like that.
Yeah, not meant for the radio.
No,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it was almost like an anti-commercial EDM track. Was what I was trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it too, because you guys have had a few of those, and it's funny because some of those anti-EDM tracks, I think, end up getting used by the EDM guys in the same way. It's subversive in a way.
I know. I think that's what happened to Bass Cannon, Flux's Bass Cannon.
Yeah.
He made this track that he thought was the anti anything good, anti anything nice. It had no typical elements in it. He made it in like the shortest time, threw it together. It was just this total piss take.
Right.
And then it was like all day Radio 1, ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's still, I mean, it still gets played to this day.
Yeah. It never should have been where it was, but it just caught a moment that people like, people were looking for that track.
That's exactly right. You know, I think what you said when you felt like there was fun missing out of it, you know, maybe at the time he felt like, you know, there's too much of something going on. This is my reaction to it.
Yeah.
And then you find out, oh shit, a lot of other people feel that way too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when a track gets as massive as Bass Cannon got, then you get into sort of it folds in on itself and you have a new problem where half the time the people don't really understand the original intentions.
Yeah, well,
point.
I remember once Flux was telling me that he saw a tweet. Someone had said, I love dubstep, but I hate the really commercial dubstep like Bass Cannon. And he just thought at the time, what is happening? How have I become the most commercial thing, making tunes like that?
Yeah, like what part of that could be considered commercial?
Yeah, so yeah, I thought that was a funny tweet.
Has there ever been music you've done that you sort of didn't take seriously that other people then sort of held up in a more serious light?
No, I mean, I don't read anything like that anymore. I've had so many annoying tweets, annoying Facebook comments, annoying YouTube comments. You know, you're agonizing over the like to dislike ratio on a YouTube.
Do you use social media much at all?
Every year, less and less from the previous year. Yeah. And it's just...
It's the worst.
Yeah, it brings me down.
Yeah.
Social media, it ends up... If I post something, I'll spend half the day looking at the likes.
Right, yeah, it's
hate
designed to make you feel like shit in a way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it exists. I really like Twitter. Twitter's always been my favorite one, just because it's, you know, on Facebook and YouTube, the comments are public for everyone to see, but on Twitter, the only people that see them are your own followers, so...
Right.
You don't get the moaning on Twitter.
Yeah,
people
it's
just tell you what they really think.
It's true, and it's a bit more of a community vibe because, like you said, only certain people can see it, and if they're seeing it, that means they probably know something about you, and it's kind of not just a random...
People only tweet you if they care.
Right.
So, like, engagement on Twitter is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and there's less, there is still some, but less of an algorithm-based thing, too.
It's just the tweets in the order they were tweeted on a big timeline. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I like the simplicity of that.
But yeah, Instagram, Snapchat in particular, I avoid.
Yeah.
Just because it's not visible.
Right.
You know, you put all this thought into something and it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And it's, honestly, man, I think it's for a different generation, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like what we were saying, how each generation has their music. You know, each generation also has their own ways of communicating.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking about MySpace and Napster and all of that, and I definitely was, also growing up through that era. And, now you sound like a dinosaur talking about that.
It's crazy.
and it's the same way, once these current crop of 15-year-olds grow up and have kids, I mean, they'll try to talk about Snapchat, and their kids will say, like, what
their kids will be rolling their eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And I do, I like Instagram, I like Twitter, but I don't, at least I try not to feel the pressure that I have to always be posting on there.
Yeah, I felt a lot of pressure for a long time. I mean, my manager's always moaning at me,
That-
saying
I mean-
I need to try harder on social media.
Yeah,
and
that's a
stuff.
manager thing.
Yeah, he should be moaning at me.
Right, exactly.
He's
They're
paid to moan.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and we're doing, what we do as artists, I guess. Yeah.
But like, I feel that it just hasn't really affected me not being on social media as much.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain artists that aren't on social media. They're just not on there. And
Right.
they still have fans,
No, of course. And I think for you, I mean, you guys were at a seminal moment of a whole genre, and you've sort of established what you do at this point.
Yeah.
And so I don't think the people who follow you necessarily follow you because you're so funny on Instagram or whatever it is,
Yeah, exactly. My old tour manager, when Dylan Francis started doing his whole with his different characters and stuff,
Yeah.
she kept trying to persuade me to do that. She was saying, "Oh, you'd be so funny if you did that. It would be amazing." And I just thought, I don't actually want to do that. I
Right.
don't want to be that guy, I don't
Right.
want to be Dylan Francis. He's Dylan Francis.
Yeah, he's amazing at what he does. And again, we've been saying it the whole time. It's very obvious watching him that he loves to do it.
Oh yeah,
And
he
has
would be
a lot
doing
of
that
fun.
even if no one cared.
Right.
He just does that because it's a funny thing to do.
Right.
Whereas if I was doing it, I would be trying to be funny on social media.
Yeah, you'd be
which
trying
would just
to be
so
cool.
crap.
Yeah, that's just, and you can tell, man. It's sad. You can tell very quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to be that guy at all.
Yeah, and nor should you, my friend.
Yeah.
Throughout all of this, we talked about your first time coming to America. Well, just really quickly, what was that like? Your first time in America, was that?
Yeah, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Things over here are very different. You
Yeah.
know, a show in Europe, you'll have a few hundred people who are into the music, but they don't go absolutely mental. They just like the music and then they go home again.
Right.
Whereas over here, the culture is like
The
you
fandom.
rage.
Of it. Right.
You turn up.
Right.
You turn up at the show, you rage, you absolutely just go mental, and it's like the time of your life. It's just a different culture.
Yeah.
And the production at the shows here is massive.
Was that the first time you started thinking about the production of your own shows on that level? Like, did it force you to kind of step your game up in that regard?
I've never ever done any production on any show.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you, not even like visual content playing behind you?
I've got my visuals and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was more of a requirement.
Right.
It wasn't something that I really cared about. I mean, people like my visuals. I need to update them a little bit.
Yeah.
I've had them for a couple of years now, but yeah, it was more of a requirement. You
Sure.
know, promoters would be saying, "Can we have your visuals?" So
Right.
I was like, "Better get some visuals then."
Right. And, you know, there's always a balance. That's another thing I like to talk about is that, you know, not every artist has to be the same as every other artist because,
No.
you know, especially in the States, there's this arms race for production going on right now, you know?
I feel like in the States, having the image is like almost the most important thing for a lot of people.
It's a big part right now, or at least I think it is still possible to have a great career and be very successful without worrying about that so much. But because we're seeing a lot of people succeed that way, it's breeding this culture now
Yeah.
where people are thinking about that at a much earlier stage than they would have before.
Yeah. I mean, I almost see myself now as an anti-image guy. My
Yeah.
wife gets annoyed at me for just being like really badly dressed and like not having a proper haircut or anything. So, I mean, let me show you this picture.
Yeah, no, I want to see.
This was at last night's show. I thought that pretty much sums it up.
yeah.
Anti-DJ,
That's perfect.
anti-image.
That's perfect. For the listeners at home, that was a pretty sweatsuit-oriented photo.
Just like, it's so many DJs now. It's tattoos, bleached hair,
Yeah.
and, you know, you're jumping up on the decks. And I feel like a lot of them do that because they are almost like playing the character of a DJ.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want to play the music. And I feel like people appreciate it in a way.
Yo, I think that's very true. I think we're starting to see, maybe not a backlash, but I think we are starting to see a saturation point of
Yeah,
that
I mean,
kind of
when
behavior.
half the new DJs wear a mask, You got to think, when's this going to end?
And, DJs are the new rock stars, right?
Yeah.
Because in the last, 5-10 years, there's been, especially in the States, but kind of globally, this new awareness of electronic music and, the DJ as the front man.
Yeah.
And so I think some of that is natural and some of that is maybe even necessary to get it as big as it's been. And my view on it, I have no hate for it. I'm one of those guys who's very low-key in person and then it kind of very much the opposite when I DJ. Like, I'm just jumping around having a seizure.
Yeah, I mean, that's all good if that's the way you are naturally.
Right. And just, so from that perspective, I understand wanting to jump around and shout on the mic. I do all of that stuff. But I think we're just at this point in 2018 where it's kind of like, okay, well, what's next? Like, we did that.
Yeah.
How else can we kind of make this fun?
Yeah, and it's, I feel like, an 18-year-old or whatever, they just got into production and they want to be a DJ. I feel like a lot of them think, well, I better bleach my hair, get some tattoos.
Yeah, very much so.
I remember meeting a DJ a few years ago. I won't name him, but the first time I met him, it was his first ever show.
Yeah.
And he was this quiet, dorky guy, dressed just really plain, just like a normal floppy haircut.
Yeah.
And the next time I saw him, he had like these stretchy earplugs, like insane DJ haircut, tattoos.
Yeah.
And it was like he'd had a little bit of success and he'd gone, better transform myself into a DJ now. But he was the exact same person. It was just strange that he transformed like that.
Yeah, I know exactly people like that. I've seen the exact same thing happen. And it's so strange because, if that's always your personality and that's who you've wanted to be, that's cool. Then do it and have fun. But it's weird when you see people doing it sort of, and then you talk to them after the show. It's like, oh, well, you're just kind of the quiet, nerdy guy like the rest of us.
Yeah, playing this character for some reason.
But,
when I got up on stage, it was literally me up there.
Right. Just the crowd hanging out with you. But I think, for someone like you especially, I think you do a lot of the talking through your music.
Yeah, that's what I try and do.
I don't feel like, listening to your music for years and now talking to you, doesn't seem like there's much of a barrier between you and the music. You know?
My music is literally just me making music for fun and putting it out and there's nothing more to it.
Right.
There's literally nothing more to it.
Do you enjoy the tour life at this point? Like, at this point you have a family, you have an established career, you've gone around the globe a bunch of times. What part of it is fun to you?
I enjoy it now more than I ever have.
Really?
Yeah, because at the beginning it was such a shift in my life.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to travel. You can't just hop on a plane and travel and expect to be fine.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure out how to travel.
Yeah, and to be healthy and...
Yeah, how to get enough sleep, how to be okay with how much sleep you're getting if it's not enough. I used to be so stressed about how much sleep I would get, I would add up exactly how much sleep, make sure it added up to the right amount every night. Whereas now, I could miss a whole night's sleep and it won't worry me because I know that I'm not going to die the next day. But yeah, growing up, I'd get 8 hours sleep a night.
Yeah.
And then one day you're getting 1 hour sleep a night and you've got to deal with that.
Yeah, and then you start getting in your own head about what is this doing to me? And, yeah.
I remember Flux used to take sleeping pills every day, like 7 days a week, because he felt that was the only way he could get to sleep.
Yeah.
Whereas, it probably wasn't necessary, but he was so so worried about it.
He's not alone in that, man. I mean, I know a lot of artists who do that.
But me, I've come to terms with everything, how it works.
Yeah.
I'm so comfortable on a plane now.
Right.
And I've trained myself. I can either stay awake or go to sleep at any point.
That's essential. That's the key.
I could lay down on the floor right now and go to sleep while you're sitting here.
That's so important, man. Yeah.
Or I can just miss a whole night's sleep on purpose if I want to.
Right. Yeah, as long as you know that you'll make it back up. Yeah. It took me a long time to learn how to sleep on planes and cars and all that. Once I figured that out, which was kind of just repetition, I guess, that was a big help for me.
Yeah, the sleep is definitely the biggest shift because sometimes there just isn't time to sleep.
Right. And you sort of get used to operating in this sort of hazy, delirious mode that becomes the new normal in a way.
I've been jet lagged for about 8 years.
How often would you say you fly overseas at this point? Is it like once a month?
I mean, sometimes we could go to 10 countries in a month.
Yeah.
Or
well,
sometimes,
in Europe, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've done 5 countries in like 2 days in Europe before. So, yeah, I mean,
But it seems like you come to the States
random.
a lot, right?
The States is the main country, definitely. Yeah. I mean, this run now, I'm doing 10 days. And it's 5 shows in 10 days.
And then just back home.
Yeah, and then I've got a few weeks of nothing. And then, I might have a couple of weekends in Europe. So it's totally random.
Sure.
But we just did China
How was
few
China?
weeks ago. Yeah, it was good. Really good, actually.
Are they kind of catching on to the dubstep sound?
Yeah. It felt like it was very new and fresh out there. They didn't know the songs specifically. Like, if you play a big song over here, they're singing along every note.
Yeah.
Whereas in China, it wasn't like that at all. They were just very much like open to this new thing. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. I'm supposed to go there for the first time later this year. And I'm really looking forward to it. And
yeah, I've done Japan, South Korea, India.
Japan,
now.
I had a great time in Japan.
Yeah, I loved Japan. I liked Japan a lot more than I expected to. We had like 3 days there, me and my tour manager, and we just went round everywhere. And
in Tokyo?
Yeah. It was so good.
I felt like I could have spent a month in Tokyo.
Yeah, it's the only place I've ever been where I was walking around thinking, I want to live here.
Yeah. I felt the same way, man. Yeah, there's just so much, and the people were amazing. And
it's like a paradise over there. It's like so nice. It's insane.
Yeah. Everything is really nice. The food is amazing. The people are very nice. And just it was refreshing because the culture is so unique there.
Yeah, and it is their culture to be that way, to be so polite, and everything is so clean and tidy, and they just, I don't know, it's a respect thing, isn't it? They respect their environment and they respect each other. It's just such a pleasant place to be.
Yeah, and it changed my brain a little bit in that, like you said, that's literally the way they live their lives. It's not something they thought about and then decided, okay, we'll do this. And to me, I was like, humans could be living a different way than we are. Yeah. And not that Japan is, a utopia, but it really did open my mind to it doesn't always have to be the way it's been.
I mean, they've got their problems like every country, but I mean, I would love to live in Japan. It's such a great place.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I guess just to kind of wrap it up for you, 2017 going into 2018, what should people be looking out for you? And more importantly, sort of what are you excited about doing?
I mean, I just want to make some bangers. That's it. I want to make
Back to basics.
I want to make some bangers, yeah. If this year I can get like 5 or 6 bangers out that other DJs like playing in their sets, I'll be totally happy. That's it. That's all I want to achieve.
Yeah, that's a great goal. And I don't think you're too far off, man. At least as somebody who likes dubstep but is not of the dubstep scene and does not play much dubstep, I mean, your tunes always find a way into my sets.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, man. I think there's just something special about what you're doing, man. It's sort of out of time in the good way.
I've had so many people say that to me. Like, there's all these rhythms that don't belong and things like that.
Yeah, well, that's actually not even what I meant, but that's kind of true too. I meant in the sense of like it's not tied to an era.
I see what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's true too. The rhythms of it and just the way you're approaching it. I'm excited to see what you're gonna do, man.
Yeah, so am I. I don't know yet, but I'm going to do something.
Yeah, sweet. I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up because, again, it's doing what you've always been doing, right? It's following what's enjoyable.
My plan. I want to do this for just forever.
Yeah.
I don't plan to take it to some new place. I don't plan to do some completely different shift in what I do. I'm just going to, and this is what I've always done and it's what I'm always going to do, regardless of, who's listening or what shows I'm doing.
Do you feel any responsibility, either yourself or with the label, for dubstep? Being someone who was there early on and making some of, what are considered to be sort of seminal dubstep songs.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I feel like I represent, the music. I didn't feel like that to begin with.
Is that pressure? Does that change the way you approach anything you do?
No, not really. I like the fact that I can do my thing.
Yeah.
And people care. People seem to care
and
listen to it. So, I like the fact that I can make dubstep and people like to listen to it. I mean, I hated calling myself a dubstep producer so much in
Really?
the early days. People used to say, "So you're a dubstep producer?" And I'd say, "No, I'm just a producer who makes dubstep."
Yeah, right.
But now I'm like, you know what? I am a dubstep producer.
Yeah, at this point,
Yeah.
it's been long enough.
I'm happy to say that now. You know, it's a group of a few guys and girls who make dubstep,
Right.
and I'm definitely part of that.
Yeah, and it's a small world at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And it always has seemed, at least from an outsider's perspective, like that's a strong community, you know?
Yeah. I really do like dubstep a lot.
Yeah.
There was a period where my love for the music wavered quite a bit when things became quite uncertain a few years ago, and the scene changed a lot suddenly. But yeah, I definitely like the music a lot. It's the music that I just find myself coming back to every time.
Sure. And I think it makes sense that, you know, we said very early on in this conversation that each generation has their music, and it's kind of the music that you listen to when you're a teenager. You know, that's the music that's going to be your heart for the rest of your life, probably.
Yeah.
And I was thinking while you were saying that, you know, do you worry about making music for people who are significantly younger than you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like sometimes when I'm at a rave or something and, you know, everybody in there is a teenager. It's especially true in Europe where, you know, people can go out at 16 at some shows in Europe.
And it's much more just culturally accepted.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes me feel quite old sometimes. I can see, you know, people like Andy C. He's been doing this for so long, for decades.
Just a machine.
He's the oldest guy in the room a lot of the time, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I want to be banging out like sick bass when I'm like 60 years old or
Right.
something. You know, I don't want to be like a Pete Tong necessarily.
Yeah.
But if I am, then fine.
Yeah, right. I don't think you have to worry about it, you know?
No, I don't think I need a roadmap of where I'm going. I just do my thing and, you know, just keep going with it.
One foot in front of the other, man. Follow the fun. I think that's
exactly,
that's about
yeah.
it. This was really fun, man. This was
All right,
awesome
yeah.
to meet
Well,
you.
thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for
me
doing
on.
it.
I'm glad to do it.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, thanks.
All right, that's the show. Thank you so much to Dr. P for sitting down with me. I really love getting to know you, man. That was a great conversation. All of you guys listening out there, much love to you. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Don't forget to check out Dr. P on tour. Keep your eyes peeled for all the new music he's going to be dropping, along with all the new releases from Circus Records in the next year. Gonna be a busy one, guys. My name is Willy Joy. You can holler at me on all social media at back-to-back-pod or at Willy Joy, or you can always email me backtobackpod@gmail.com. That's about it for this week. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you have a good one. Wherever you're at, good to hang out with you this week. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. We've got some great guests coming up. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave us a rating and a review, and just, you know, stay locked. That's it. I love you guys. Have a good week. Peace.